The gentle whirring of Zainab's sewing machine filled the quiet night air, a sound that had become as familiar to the neighborhood as the call to prayer. In her tiny workshop, really just a converted storage room behind her family's compound in Kano, the 28-year-old seamstress worked by the light of 2 kerosene lamps. Her fingers, marked with tiny scars from years of pinpricks, moved with practiced grace over the delicate white fabric of what would become a wedding dress. "Just a few more beads," she whispered to herself, carefully stitching each crystal onto the bodice. The dress belonged to the daughter of a wealthy businessman who had heard of Zainab's talent through whispered recommendations. Such clients always came discreetly, usually in the evening hours when Miriam, her stepmother, was too busy with her evening soap operas to notice. As Zainab worked, her mind wandered to the days when her mother was still alive. The memory came as clear as yesterday. She was 6 years old, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her mother's old Singer sewing machine. The same machine that now sat in the corner of her workshop, too precious to use but too meaningful to sell. "Watch carefully, my Zainab," her mother had said, her soft voice mixing with the clicking of the machine's foot pedal. "See how I guide the fabric? Not too fast, not too slow. Like cooking jollof rice, you must have patience." Her mother always had a way of making complicated things seem simple, breaking down each task into bite-sized pieces that young Zainab could understand. A sudden knock at the workshop door made Zainab jump, nearly dropping her needle. But her tension eased when she heard a familiar voice. "It's me. Open up before your stepmother sees me lurking around like a thief." Zainab smiled, quickly opening the door to let Halima in. Her best friend burst into the room like a gust of wind, her colorful hijab slightly askew from rushing. As always, she wore one of Zainab's creations. Today it was a blue Ankara blouse with modern cape-like sleeves, the kind that made other market women ask where she got her clothes. "I sold everything today," Halima announced, dropping onto the wooden stool near the work table. "Everything. And you won't believe how many people asked about my blouse. I gave your name to at least 10 women, all of them with money." She paused, noticing the wedding dress. "Mashallah, is that for the bank manager's daughter?" Zainab nodded, carefully adjusting the dress on her mannequin. "Her wedding is in 2 weeks. She saw my design for Auntie Hadiza's niece and insisted on something similar, but more modern." Halima stood up to examine the dress more closely. The bodice combined traditional Hausa embroidery patterns with contemporary beadwork, while the skirt flowed in elegant layers that would look graceful in both standing and sitting positions. A detail Zainab always considered for traditional ceremonies. "You know," Halima said thoughtfully, "with all these rich clients, you could really open that fashion house you're always dreaming about. Zainab's House of Fashion. I can see it now, right there in the new shopping complex they're building downtown." Zainab's eyes lit up at the thought. She walked to the wall where she'd pinned her sketches, dozens of designs ranging from traditional bridal wear to modern office attire, each one carefully labeled with fabric suggestions and price estimates. In her mind, she could already see them displayed in a proper showroom with bright lights and large mirrors, not hidden away in this cramped workshop. "Insha'Allah," she said softly. "First, I need to save enough for rent and materials, and," her voice trailed off, "and convince your father," Halima finished. They both knew that was the bigger challenge. Ever since Zainab's mother passed and her father married Miriam, things had changed. The girl who was once encouraged to pursue her talents now had to hide them like secrets. A distant voice called out across the compound, "Miriam," summoning everyone for dinner. Halima quickly gathered her things, knowing it wasn't wise to be caught visiting at this hour. "Don't give up," Halima whispered, hugging her friend. "Allah gives the hardest battles to his strongest soldiers." After Halima left, Zainab covered the wedding dress carefully with a clean sheet. In the quiet of her workshop, she allowed herself a moment to dream. But then Mariam's voice came again, sharper this time, and Zainab's dreams retreated like stars at dawn. She smoothed her hijab, turned off the lamps, and stepped out into the compound, locking her little workshop behind her. "Wasting your time again with that useless sewing?" Mariam's voice cut through the morning air like a knife. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching as Zainab quickly tucked a small piece of fabric under her tray of breakfast dishes. "I was just fixing a small tear, Mama Mariam," Zainab replied softly, using the respectful title even though the words felt heavy on her tongue. She kept her eyes lowered, a habit she'd developed over the 5 years since her father had married Mariam. "Fixing tears?" Mariam's laugh was sharp. "Is that what you call it? While your sister Amina is making something of herself at the bank, you sit here playing with thread like a child." She moved closer, her expensive perfume filling the space between them. "What man will want to marry a woman who behaves like a common tailor?" Before Zainab could respond, footsteps approached the kitchen. Amina appeared, already dressed in her corporate outfit, a crisp black suit that Zainab had secretly altered to fit her perfectly. Despite being stepsisters, they looked nothing alike. Where Zainab was tall and slender like her mother, Amina had Mariam's rounder features and shorter stature. "Mama, the driver is waiting," Amina said, barely glancing at Zainab. But there was something in that brief look, something that might have been envy or guilt or both. "Yes, yes. Go make us proud, my dear." Mariam beamed, her entire demeanor changing as she turned to her biological daughter. "Show those bank people what a proper young woman from a respectable family can do." After they left, Zainab let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The kitchen suddenly felt larger, as if it had been squeezed tight by Mariam's presence and could finally expand again. "Don't let her words sink into your heart, small madam," came a whisper from the corner. Auntie Hadiza, who had worked for their family since before Zainab was born, emerged from the pantry where she had been pretending to organize spices. The old woman's face was creased with concern. "Your hands have magic in them. Your mother, Allah rest her soul, would be proud." Before Zainab could respond, little feet came pattering into the kitchen. Ibrahim, her 8-year-old half-brother, burst in with his school bag hanging open and his uniform shirt untucked. "Zainab, look what I found in the market yesterday." He dug into his pocket and pulled out a handful of colorful fabric scraps, his eyes shining with excitement. The cloth seller was throwing them away. "They're pretty, right? You can use them for your sewing." Zainab's heart swelled with love for her little brother. Unlike Amina, Ibrahim had none of Mariam's coldness in him. He was pure sunshine, always finding ways to support his big sister's dreams, even at his young age. "Thank you, Ibrahim," she whispered, quickly tucking the scraps into her dress pocket before anyone could see. "But remember what we talked about? We have to keep this our secret, okay?" Ibrahim nodded solemnly, making a zipping motion across his lips. Later that afternoon, Zainab's father, Musa, returned from his business trip to Abuja. She heard Mariam's voice drift through the compound as she spoke to him in their bedroom. "Bringing shame to the family name," Mariam was saying. "The daughter of Musa Ahmed, sneaking around with needle and thread like a common seamstress. What will people think? Your business partners' wives are asking questions." Zainab pressed herself against the wall outside, her heart pounding. Her father's response was too quiet to hear, but she knew the pattern by now. Mariam had a way of taking her father's silence and filling it with her own ideas, her own version of what was right and proper. That evening, when Zainab served her father his favorite chin that she had made specially for his return, he couldn't quite meet her eyes. The treats sat untouched on the plate between them, like a bridge neither could cross. "Baba," she started, hoping to explain about her dreams, about the clients who sought her out, about how she could make something of herself while still bringing honor to the family. But Musa raised his hand, stopping her words before they could begin. "Your stepmother thinks—" He paused, his face tired. "She thinks it might be time to consider some marriage proposals. The son of my business partner in Kaduna has expressed interest." The world seemed to tilt beneath Zainab's feet. "But Baba, my sew," she began. "Enough about the sewing," he said, but his voice carried more weariness than anger. "You are not a child anymore, Zainab. It's time to think about your future. A real future." That night, in her workshop, Zainab pulled out the fabric scraps Ibrahim had given her. In the dim lamplight, she arranged them into a small pattern, bits of blue, green, and gold forming a star. Outside, she could hear Amina returning from her late shift at the bank, her heels clicking against the compound's tiles. For a moment, They clicked in rhythm with Zainab's heartbeat, a reminder that they were both trapped in lives they hadn't chosen. One in a gilded cage of banking halls, the other in the shadows of a modest workshop. But at least Amina's cage came with their parents' approval. Everything changed the day Fatima Bello walked into Halima's market stall. The fashion blogger had been taking pictures of the market's colorful atmosphere for her Instagram page when she spotted Halima arranging fruits in her stall, wearing one of Zainab's latest designs. A purple Ankara jacket with contemporary geometric cutouts along the sleeves. "That dress!" Fatima exclaimed, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "Where did you get it? It's exactly the kind of fusion piece I've been looking for." Before Halima could respond, a group of market women had gathered, all of them wearing Zainab's creations. Like proud peacocks, they showed off their clothes, each telling Fatima how the young seamstress had captured exactly what they wanted, while keeping their outfits modest and traditional enough for their family's approval. That evening, Halima burst into Zainab's workshop, out of breath and eyes shining with excitement. "You'll never believe who I met today. Fatima Bello, the one with almost 1 million followers on Instagram." "The fashion blogger? The one who's always posting about Lagos Fashion Week?" "Yes, and she wants to feature your designs on her blog." Halima was practically dancing around the small workshop. "She says your style is exactly what the industry needs. Traditional values with a modern voice." The next few weeks passed in a blur. Fatima's first post about Zainab's designs went viral. Soon, her phone was buzzing with messages from people all over Nigeria requesting her clothes. What had been a steady trickle of local clients turned into a stream of orders from across the country. One afternoon, while Zainab was measuring a client in her workshop, a sleek black car pulled up outside the compound. Mrs. Abubakar, one of Kano's most influential socialites, stepped out, her gold jewelry catching the sunlight. "So this is where the magic happens," Mrs. Abubakar said, looking around the tiny workshop with keen eyes. She ran her manicured fingers over a half-finished dress on the mannequin. "My daughters have been talking about nothing but your designs since they saw them on Fatima's blog." Mrs. Abubakar settled onto the only comfortable chair in the workshop, her expensive wrapper arranged perfectly around her. "Listen, my dear, I own several properties in the new shopping complex downtown. One of them would be perfect for a boutique." She leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "I could offer you a good rate for rent, and my influence could bring in the right kind of customers." Zainab's hands trembled as she served Mrs. Abubakar water in her best glass. A real shop? In the new complex? It seemed too good to be true. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Zainab and Halima sat in the workshop, planning into the early hours. They spread papers across the work table, sketches of shop layouts, lists of equipment needed, calculations of costs, and projections of earnings. "We could paint the walls this soft cream color," Halima said, pointing to a color swatch, "and have your logo right here above the entrance." "And big mirrors here," Zainab added, her voice hushed with excitement. "With good lighting so people can see the details in the clothes properly." The next day, Fatima posted another feature about Zainab's designs. This time, she included the story behind the clothes, how a young woman from a conservative background was revolutionizing traditional fashion. The post exploded across social media. Orders flooded in, and fashion magazines started reaching out for interviews. "You need to hire help," Halima insisted, watching Zainab work late into the night again. "You can't keep up with all these orders by yourself." "First, let me secure the shop," Zainab replied, her fingers steady as she beaded a collar. "Once that's done, I can start building a proper team." But even as her professional life soared, Zainab felt the weight of secrecy growing heavier. She kept her success hidden from her family, knowing Mariam would find a way to twist it into something shameful. She took her meetings with Mrs. Abubakar during the hours when her stepmother was busy with her afternoon activities. And she asked Fatima to use only her first name in the blog posts. What she didn't see was the shadow that passed briefly across her workshop window. Amina, pausing on her way home from the bank, watching her stepsister's quiet triumph with an expression that mixed envy, admiration, and something darker inherited from her mother. That same week, rumors started spreading at the local mosque during morning prayers. Did you hear about Musa Ahmed's daughter? One woman murmured to another. They say she's making indecent clothes for young girls, Western styles that show too much. I heard she's encouraging women to dress inappropriately. Another added. My cousin's friend saw the pictures on the internet. By afternoon, the rumors had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Mariam made sure of it, moving from house to house under the pretense of friendly visits, her voice dripping with fake concern as she spoke about her wayward stepdaughter. It breaks my heart, she told the neighborhood women over afternoon tea. We tried to raise her properly after her poor mother passed away. But these internet people, they've led her astray, making our decent girls wear such shameful styles. Zainab first noticed something was wrong when 3 clients canceled their orders in one day. Then her phone started buzzing with messages from worried customers, asking if the rumors were true. She tried to explain that her designs were always modest, always respectful of their traditions, but doubt had already taken root. At home, Mariam's campaign was relentless. Your daughter is bringing shame to our family name, she told Musa over dinner, loud enough for everyone to hear. People are talking. The imam's wife herself expressed concerns about the corrupting influence on young girls. Zainab sat silently at the table, her food untouched. Across from her, Amina stared at her plate, something like guilt flickering across her face. But Mariam's worst blow came through social media. Zainab woke up one morning to find her designs being attacked online. Anonymous accounts claimed she had stolen her ideas from other designers. Some posted manipulated photos of her clothes, edited to look more revealing than they were. Look at these comments, Halima said, scrolling through her phone with shaking hands. Fraud. Copycat. Shame on her family. Who would do this? But Zainab knew. She had seen Amina hunched over her laptop late at night, had caught glimpses of her stepsister's guilty expressions. Mariam had found the perfect weapon in her tech-savvy daughter. The effects were devastating. Fatima Bello, trying to protect her own reputation, quietly removed her posts about Zainab's work. Orders dried up. Former clients stopped responding to messages. Mrs. Abubakar's withdrawal was the most painful one. She came to the workshop one evening, her usually warm demeanor replaced by cool professionalism. I'm sorry, my dear, she said, not quite meeting Zainab's eyes. But after speaking with your stepmother about certain concerns, I don't think this is the right time for our business arrangement. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Zainab sat in her workshop, surrounded by the ruins of her dreams. She ran her fingers over her mother's old Singer machine, drawing comfort from its familiar curves. The wall of sketches seemed to mock her now, each design a reminder of what she was losing. Don't be sad, sister, he whispered, climbing into her lap like he used to when he was younger. I still believe in you. Zainab held him close, letting his innocent faith wash over her like a balm. But then she heard footsteps approaching the workshop. The door burst open. Mariam stood there, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. Behind her, Amina lingered in the shadows, refusing to look at Zainab. Well, well, Mariam said, moving into the workshop like a storm cloud. So this is where you've been corrupting our community's daughters. She ran her hand along the work table, her rings catching the dim light. Such a shame about all these rumors. But you know how people talk. Her voice trailed off as she reached Zainab's precious sewing machine. With deliberate slowness, she pushed it. The heavy machine crashed to the floor with a sickening crack, pieces scattering across the concrete. Why? Zainab asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why do you hate me so much? Mariam's laugh was cold. Hate you? Oh, my dear. I'm protecting our family's reputation, protecting Amina's future. What respectable man would marry into a family with a dressmaker? She spat the last word like it was poison. She moved through the workshop methodically then, pulling down sketches, upending boxes of materials. When she reached the rack of finished orders, she pulled a small bottle from her wrapper and began sprinkling liquid on the clothes. Bleach, she said casually, as Zainab watched her creations being ruined one by one. To clean away this shame. Amina finally spoke from the doorway, her voice trembling. Mama, maybe that's enough. But Mariam wasn't finished. She turned to Zainab with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, and those fake accounts attacking your work? They'll keep coming. Every time you try to rise, they'll be there to remind everyone of your shame. That's the price of defying me." After they left, Zainab stood in the wreckage of her workshop. Ibrahim crept out from his hiding place, tears streaming down his face. Together, they looked at the destruction, the broken machine, the ruined clothes, the bleached fabrics that would never be worn. The day Zainab's father collapsed, the morning sun had barely risen over Kano. He had been reading the newspaper in the courtyard when his hand suddenly dropped, pages scattering across the tiles like fallen leaves. The doctor called it stress-induced hypertension. Mariam called it something else entirely. "Look what you've done to your father," she hissed at Zainab outside the hospital room. "All this shame you've brought to our family. It's breaking his heart." Her voice carried just loud enough for the relatives gathered in the hallway to hear, their disapproving glances weighing heavy on Zainab's shoulders. Inside the room, Musa lay against white hospital pillows, looking smaller than Zainab had ever seen him. The steady beep of machines marked time like a metronome, counting out the moments of her father's fragile recovery. That evening, Ibrahim came running to Zainab's workshop, his small face flushed with urgency. He had been playing near Mariam's room, forgotten by the adults in their concern over Musa, when he overheard something that made his young heart race with fear. "Sister," he whispered, clutching Zainab's hand. "I heard Mama Mariam on the phone. She was talking to Uncle Kabir in Sokoto." His voice trembled. "They're planning to marry you to his son, the one who owns the rice factory. They say it will happen as soon as Baba is better." Zainab felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Uncle Kabir's son, she had met him once at a family gathering. He was twice her age, already twice divorced, known for his strict views on a woman's place in the home. Before she could process this news, her phone buzzed with an email notification. In the chaos of the past few days, she had almost forgotten about the portfolio she had sent to various fashion houses months ago, back when her dreams still seemed possible. The email was from Tara Adebayo, creative director of Lagos Fashion House. Zainab's hands shook as she read. "Dear Zainab, your design portfolio caught my attention through Fatima's blog posts before they were taken down. Your fusion of traditional elements with contemporary styling is exactly what we're looking for. We would like to offer you a position as junior designer at Lagos Fashion House." The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. Lagos Fashion House, one of Nigeria's most prestigious fashion companies. The kind of opportunity that came once in a lifetime. But reality crashed back when Halima burst into the workshop, her hijab askew in her haste. "The whole family is gathering tonight," she said breathlessly. "Your aunties, uncles, everyone. Mariam has been calling them all day." The family gathering was worse than Zainab could have imagined. In their large sitting room, relatives filled every chair and cushion, their faces a mix of concern and judgment. Mariam had positioned herself at the center, playing the role of the worried stepmother perfectly. "We must think of the family's reputation," she declared, her voice thick with fake emotion. "A good marriage will solve everything. Brother Kabir's son is willing to overlook recent events." The words hung in the air like a noose. But then, something unexpected happened. Halima, who had been quietly serving refreshments, stepped forward. "Overlook what events?" she asked loudly. "The fact that Zainab has a God-given talent, that she makes clothes that honor our traditions while moving forward? Or is it that her success threatens you, Mama Mariam?" The room fell silent. Even the ceiling fans seemed to hold their breath. "I have proof," Halima continued, pulling out her phone. "Screenshots of all the fake accounts Amina created to destroy Zainab's reputation. The timestamps, the IP addresses, everything." Amina, who had been sitting quietly beside her mother, suddenly stood up. "It's true," she said, her voice shaking. "Mama made me do it. She said no one would notice me if Zainab became successful." The room erupted in chaos. Aunties gasped, uncles argued. In the midst of it all, Zainab's phone buzzed again, another email from Tara Adebayo, asking for her response to the job offer. Looking around the room, Zainab saw her life laid bare. Her father, still weak from the hospital, looking lost in his own home. Mariam, her mask of concern cracking to reveal the anger beneath. Amina, caught between guilt and relief at finally telling the truth. And Ibrahim, watching it all with wise eyes, too old for his young face. The choice crystallized in her mind like a diamond forming under pressure. Sometimes moving forward meant leaving things behind. Sometimes the bravest thing wasn't fighting back, but knowing when to walk away. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. How could she explain that her dream had evolved? That maybe her mother's legacy wasn't meant to bloom in their small compound in Kano, but in the vibrant fashion world of Lagos. That perhaps the real tragedy wasn't in leaving, but in staying until bitterness took root in her heart. As the family argued around her, Zainab looked down at her phone and began to type her response to Tara Adebayo. Her fingers moved with the same certainty they had when stitching her first design, when threading her mother's old machine, when daring to dream of something more. Dear Miss Adebayo, I would be honored to accept the position. On her last night in Kano, Zainab sat cross-legged on the floor of her workshop, surrounded by the pieces of her first dream. The moon cast long shadows through the small window, turning everything silver and strange. Her bus ticket to Lagos lay beside her, tomorrow's date printed in bold black letters that seemed to pulse in the darkness. She ran her fingers over her mother's broken sewing machine one last time, remembering all the lessons learned at its side. Then, with careful movements, she began to pack up her sewing supplies. Needles, threads, measuring tape, each item carrying years of memories. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Amina, standing awkwardly in the doorway, still wearing her bank uniform. Amina started, then stopped, twisting her hands together. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. I was jealous. You were brave enough to chase your dreams while I just did what Mama wanted. Zainab looked at her stepsister, really looked at her for the first time in years. She saw not the villain of her story, but another young woman trapped in Mariam's web of expectations. It's not too late for you either, Zainab said softly. To choose your own path. Amina nodded, tears gleaming in her eyes, then quickly left before anyone could see them together.
Later that night, Zainab crept into her father's room. Musa was asleep, still recovering from his illness. She placed a letter on his bedside table. Words she couldn't say face to face, explaining about Lagos fashion house, about her dreams, about hoping to make him proud someday. Forgive me, Baba, she whispered, kissing his forehead gently. The dawn prayer was just beginning when Zainab stepped out of the compound for the last time. She carried only a small suitcase and her mother's sewing kit, wrapped in a silk scarf she had made years ago. But at the gate, a small figure was waiting. Ibrahim, she breathed, her heart breaking anew at the sight of her little brother in his rumpled pajamas. He held out something to her, a shirt he was wearing over his nightclothes. The last thing she had made for him, with its carefully stitched collar and buttons. I'll wear it every Friday, he declared, his voice wavering but determined. So I don't forget how to be brave like you. Zainab knelt down and held him close, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair one last time. Keep drawing, she whispered, keep creating. Don't let anyone tell you it's wrong to make beautiful things. The sun was rising properly now, painting the sky in shades of hope and heartbreak. Halima waited in her old car to drive Zainab to the bus station. As they pulled away, Zainab looked back through tears to see Ibrahim standing at the compound gate, wearing her shirt like armor, his small hand raised in farewell. He stood there long after the car had disappeared, watching the empty road as though his sister might change her mind and return. But some dreams demand we walk away from others, and some victories feel exactly like defeat.
In her hand, Zainab clutched two things, her mother's small sewing kit and Tara Adebayo's letter offering her a place at Lagos Fashion House. Between them, they represented everything she was leaving behind and everything she might become. The morning call to prayer echoed across Kano one last time, following her like a blessing or a lament. In its notes, she heard all the stories yet to be written, all the designs yet to be created, all the dreams that die so that new ones might live. The tragedy, perhaps, was not in the leaving, but in having to choose between the person she was raised to be and the person she knew she could become. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap on the notification bell for more interesting stories like this one. Goodbye.